of the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ.06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
No quarter November wrap-up.
That was ridiculous.
That's what that is. We got Pastor Toby, Chuck Knox, Gabriel, and the Christian Prince of Moscow, and all the mental space and evangelifish across the world right now, apparently. Okay. And he's also a pirate.
Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's watch.
Welcome back to No Quarter November. For 11 months out of the year, I'm notoriously timid, as cautious and as polite as a Southern Baptist raising funds for the ERLC. But the month of November is a time for taking no prisoners and for granting no quarter. If you think of my blog as a shotgun, this is the month when I saw off all my typical careful qualifications and blast away with a double-barreled shorty. Everything we do this month will be focused on one singular goal. We want to help you apocalypse-proof your family. Thank you, honey. But why should you listen to me about such things? Well, when it comes to culture war and culture building, we've been at this for half a century now, much longer than such things have been cool to talk about in the green room at G3.
Is that Dane? I want to know.
Like my parents taught me, a strong family isn't possible without quick, full, and honest confession of sin, without any wussy excuse making. And especially now, it's just as important not to confess and repent of things that aren't really sins. Because lying is bad, and so is being a wuss.
There goes that word.
There's that word. Perimeter breach.
Stay tuned all month, because this November, each week we'll have a theme that will guide all our book and content giveaways as we help you get your own family prepped and resilient for the countless cultural curveballs that are just around the corner. We're going to be covering leadership and raising boys and gratitude and a whole lot more. It's November, so you better believe that we're here to give away a bunch of stuff.
Lovely.
Oh, man.
Stick around. Time for pie.
Yeah, it's the drone for me. It's the drone for me.
Did you really hit the drone?
What is it? What did it look like?
Gabe.
The magic of Hollywood.
Right in Moscow.
How warm was that flamethrower?
It was hot.
Yeah.
So you saw the size of the tank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that tank, if you put diesel in it and mix in some gas, and if you want some napalm, and napalm is just to make it sticky. But we didn't have napalm. The napalm was on the targets.
Okay.
But if you filled up that tank with diesel and you had a good rig, you could go a good way into Montana with it, right? It drives away. But in that tank, you empty the tank with a flamethrower in 4 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
How many times did you have to refill for the video?
Probably 3 or 4.
Really?
3 or 4. But it was. I mean, there's a lot of energy coming out of that.
Yeah.
The rod, yeah.
So it was. I had to lean back a little bit.
There's a little kick. There's a little kick.
That's funny.
So can we talk about the figures that were there? So you had Elsa, Little Mermaid, Twitter, Instagram. Why burn those?
Well, Instagram.
Yeah,
Why-
yeah.
The fact that we have to ask that question.
Well, that's true. Some of us have better Instagram feeds than others.
So probably the big question is Disney princesses, really?
Right.
Right. So here's the question. How has the follow your heart rot gotten into as many Christian families as it has?
That's right.
Right. The catechism of the Disney empire is follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart.
Right.
And all you have to do is take some of the songs of those Disney princesses and read the lyrics aloud.
Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back. Okay, I'm sorry.
He doesn't need to read them. He's got them.
Some people have internalized them already.
It's working, Knox. So no.
I'm just a representative of the public, unfortunately.
And basically, it's the me-centeredness of me and my emotions.
Yeah.
Is being driven by entities like Disney. So Disney has become the poster child of emotionalism and pervy emotionalism, right? And that all came from somewhere. It didn't just erupt in the last 2 years. It's all been carefully groomed.
And it's more than that. Even it's I call it the Disney gospel, where it's not only it's not should you follow your heart, but if you follow your heart, and that includes disobeying your dad
Because he's an idiot.
because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
In the end, they'll come back and ask your forgiveness, and then you'll live happily ever.
Yeah,
after.
it's witchcraft at the end of the day, right?
Right. Yeah. They're going to trick out happily ever after.
Right.
Out of disobedience and rebellion because you followed your heart.
Right. Exactly.
And
So that's why.
Yeah, you burned it down.
That's why the burn.
So you've been doing No Quarter November now. This is the 5th year, right?
Maybe I forgot to count. There's the there's the field. There's the boat. The original couch.
Yep.
The car.
Truck. The truck and the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be 5th.
Okay.
Yeah. Has it been good?
And boat 6.
I thought you meant-
Did I say boat?
I think you said both.
Yeah.
All right. Let's work this out.
There was 2 boats.
Our episode today is on math reform.
As a pastor, like, what's your calculation in doing No Quarter November? What are you trying to accomplish? Even with our local church here.
Calculation?
We just went through this math thing, Gabe.
Why, as a pastor, are you doing this?
Yeah. So the question basically, I decided, and this was probably back in 1988, I decided what my audience, who am I writing for? When everything that I write, I want to write in some way, shape, or form aimed at that audience, right? And I've not really deviated from that since the late 80s. And the person I'm writing for is the person who feels instinctively that something is seriously wrong with the culture around him, including probably his own church's culture, right? Something is seriously wrong with his culture. He knows that it's wrong, but he can't quite articulate what's wrong. And I want to write in such a way where people like that say, that's it. That's what, he just put words to the way I've been feeling, right? And I think it was 1 or 2 ago we said that we're not particularly inflammatory. The world is flammable.
Yeah, right.
Basically with or without me, with my flamethrower or cigar or whatever, the world is currently burning down.
Yeah.
Right. We're burning down. So we flipped the metaphor. So instead of the world burning down and I show up as a fireman, we're starting our own fires.
Yeah.
Backfires to the way forest fight
fires.
Forest firefighters.
Yeah. Firefighters.
They light fires to backburn. To
That's
backburn.
right. That's right.
To stop the fire.
Yeah. Right. So this year, what are your big takeaways? I'm curious what you take. What are your takeaways this year?
Probably the big takeaway is that we've had a good, robust response. I don't have the numbers yet, but it's been really good, robust response this year. And the rest of the world, including the Christian world, appears to be going along. Some of it supportively, and some of it finally vocalizing opposition, like.
That they weren't before, huh?
Yeah, before there was a concerted effort to
ignore.
Let's not name Moscow.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Let's not give them the dignity of platforming them, giving them credit for being significant in any way. That was the strategy up to a very short time ago, and then within the last year, open criticism, opposition. Has started to surface, which means that we've risen to the dignity of needing to be opposed in an overt way.
Right.
And
pagan. Oh, I'm sorry, Christians. Sorry.
Well, and there's a range. It's like on a dimmer switch. There are people who have the Moscow derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. They, as far as they're concerned, we are orcs and pedophiles, and where there's nothing good about us.
Right.
Right. And so consequently, they just have to tell the world how evil and wicked we are and tear the mask off. And those people are they've just lost it. They've got the derangement syndrome.
Right.
The recent piece by Kevin DeYoung was a more effective criticism because he recognized at the front end that a lot of what we're doing is profoundly attractive to reasonable Christian people.
Yeah.
And what he was trying to do is say, yes, I know, I get it. I get why you're attracted to that. But I think there's a kink in the hose down there somewhere.
Yeah.
So he had his criticism, but it was a rational criticism in that he recognized that we were doing something that was attractive to people who were not being attracted by other evangelical leaders.
Right.
So I know you're preparing a response to Kevin DeYoung.
Right.
I don't know how much you want to give away now, but nevertheless, I mean, what are some takeaways there? I know you responded on Twitter briefly. Thanked him for the article, cautioned people about nuking him.
Yeah.
Oh man,
what are some key? I don't know. What are some things that stood out for you in his article that are worth responding to?
So there are big ticket items, and I'll mention that in a minute. But then there's just sort of incidental things. So at the tail end of his article, he had collected up a bunch of instances where I'd used crass expressions in different ways. He took it's sort of like the old, I don't even know if they're around anymore, but there used to be a site called screenit.com.
Oh yeah.
If you were worried about your kids going to a movie, you would look up screenit.com and it would count the hells and damns and all the
blasphemies and everything.
All the blasphemies would be caught in this filter.
Yeah.
And then you would have them all in one spot.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and they said in 10 minutes, and 15, 17, 19.
And then you say, okay, I don't want to take that all in over the course of a movie, but why would I want to take it in this
within 10 minutes?
I condensed it for you.
I condensed it for you and threw in some asterisks to make it all better. And so what he did was he labeled he mentioned a bunch of these words, and there was no ambiguity about what words they were referring to.
Right.
So all his readers had those words come into their mind. Oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. And so he apparently thinks that it's all right for a Christian writer to conjure up those words in a reader's mind for his purpose of opposing what he considers to be a sin. In this case, my sin or my problem, right? But he's evoking those words to make a point.
Right.
Which is exactly what I was doing in all the he made the point with the asterisks.
Yeah.
I made the point in things called the paragraph above and the paragraph below. Right. When if I use a word like that, I set it up. I do it deliberately. So, for example, the C word that he referred to there is not me calling women.
I remember that one.
I'm not calling women that. Yeah. What I did is these women are by their behavior, they are reducing themselves to that. Right. So that was the contextual flow. So he's doing the same thing I'm doing. Basically, he's evoking those words.
He's saying there's a time and place to evoke those words.
Right.
So long as you qualify it in some way.
Right.
In his way, he used an asterisk.
Right.
In your way, you explain what you mean.
Correct. That's it. So I don't see in principle how we were doing anything different.
I just think his ways was worse because when I was reading through Kevin DeYoung's blog post, I was like, "What is that word? What he put an asterisk in?" I found myself like trying to focus and identify each word. And so I just skipped sections because of that.
This is a new Christian board game. What's this
Guess
word?
what this word is?
Yes.
Rhymes with wuss.
and that incidentally, and wuss is not a bad word. Wuss just means that Tim.
You didn't get the memo from TGC. And your name isn't Kevin DeYoung, so you don't get to say those things. So that's part of the problem.
He didn't even put any asterisks next to words.
No, I saw that one clearly.
Jay was scandalized.
We all were. Thanks, Kevin.
All right. So, but the big picture here. This is the big picture response, and that is. Kevin DeYoung's long been associated with the Gospel Coalition.
Yeah.
Right? And the Gospel Coalition has been steadily going soft.
Sinking.
What? All right. Puff pieces about Taylor Swift and just going soft.
Yeah.
And the fact that he thought that the need of the hour was to oppose what we're doing.
Yeah. Right.
And not be concerned or vocal at all about the direction of TGC's drift, manifest, open drift.
Yeah.
And a large part of what we're doing here in Moscow is moving the Overton window.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. We're moving the Overton window. And the thing, if the Overton window is the frame of acceptable discourse.
Yeah.
Right. And you cannot move the frame, you cannot move the Overton window from inside the window. Mm-hmm. You can't push. You have to get outside the window and pull. Okay. So what I'm doing, and it's deliberately and self-consciously stepping outside the Overton window in order to pull back in a more sensible direction. TGC has been in the forefront of moving the Overton window to the left. Right. So we're
underneath his leadership too, though, right?
Well, he's not the
he's not a leader.
It's a board and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't want to lay it at his feet. But whatever he did, his brand. He writes good stuff. I like his stuff. I like his analysis.
Yeah.
But his brand of opposition was not effective in stopping the leftward drift of TGC.
Right.
And it's moving decidedly left, and he's not felt the need or the pressure to distance himself from that.
Right.
He needs to distance himself from us, right? And that tells you where all the pressures are
and levers,
all the pressures and levers in Big Eva, even on the right wing of Big Eva. Mm-hmm. So I'd put Kevin DeYoung on the right side. Yeah. He's a conservative, believing man, writes good stuff, but he is manageable by the currents that big complex orchestrates. And this is a related point, and that is he had a problem with the Moscow mood, as he called it, as sort of worldliness, like a worldliness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But worldliness, C.S. Lewis in Screwtape Letters sort of pins worldliness as a desire for respectability.
Right.
Now who is exhibiting more of a desire for respectability.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If someone said, the problem with Wilson is that he's such an apple polisher, a climber, a flatterer.
He's trying to climb up the corporate evangelical pole or ladder.
He's trying to get on the conference circuit. Really? Is that I can think of criticisms to make about me, but striving for respectability, if that's what my goal is, I'm very, very bad at it.
That was his whole criticism, though, wasn't it? That was part of his criticism, is that it doesn't seem respectable in a Christian environment.
Right. And so he thinks he simultaneously wants to say we're being worldly, we're wanting to get the world's accolades.
Right.
But that's not exactly what we're doing. And what he's doing is going to get the world's accolades. Right. So when he wrote that article, a bunch of people, he doesn't have the derangement syndrome, but a bunch of people who do came out and applauded. Thank you for speaking out, Kevin. Why are you getting the applause from that crowd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Pastor, when you talk about the Overton window, it wasn't a term I heard until I moved here. But one of the things that's been surprising with some of the pushback that's come towards Moscow from outside, it's that these people understand that the Overton window is moving, but they don't know right now that it's placed right above their children's bedroom doors.
Oh yeah,
right. And so when they see you push back with a flamethrower against all the things that you lit on fire, they kind of flinch. But you wouldn't flinch if those are the things that are climbing through your children's bedroom doors. You'd be like, you better get this thing out of here. And so the fact that we don't have leaders that know where the Overton window currently is, and then they get mad at you for pushing it, drives me insane.
Right.
You know, and I don't know, like, how do I wake these guys up to say, okay, listen, if you got a problem, like, let's deal with that in a second, but can we at least move the window from the kids' bedroom? You know, can we at least push this direction together for a minute? Right. And once we get that clear, then let's have it out.
Mm-hmm. There's a local bar here in Moscow, a local bar that had some sort of event coming up, and the poster for the event was the devil walking away with a backpack on, and there was a child in the backpack. Oh, all right. So the devil's walking off with a kid.
Yeah.
Right. And we've gotten to the point where you could say to everyone, can we at least agree that letting the devil walk off with the children?
Bad idea.
That's not what we want. Yes, but, mean words.
Wow. Public houses or pubs are not just places to drink beer, wine, cider, or even something a little stronger, like Pastor Doug does in his videos sometimes. It's also a unique social center, very often the focus of community life in villages, towns, and cities throughout the length and breadth of the world. We here at Cross Politic hope to emulate that for you and yours. That's why you should grab yourself a pub membership at fightleftfeast.com. We need you on this ride with us, so pull up a chair, grab a pint, join us on this ride at fightleftfeast.com. Again, there's a brand new app out, Fight Left Feast app, where you can, there's a bunch of free content, so download it if you don't have it, but there's also stuff there for our pub members, and once you're a pub member, you can unlock that and get access to it all. FightLeftFeast.com.
Okay, so Pastor Wilson, I want to talk.
Are you going to hog this one?
Yes, I am. This is my pastor.
So I got Rosaria.
I'm hogging this one. All right, so I want to take my first lady, that's what I call her, Mrs. Wilson. I want to put her right here. Okay. All right, and we're going to have that conversation in just a second because we're going to get there. But I want to talk about the map. You usually have a map for each No Quarter November. What was the intended map that you had? Let's talk about how God interrupted that.
Yeah, I forget what the intended map was.
That's what happens in battle.
I list the articles.
I had the sketch of some topics that I was going to do, which I wound up putting in last Monday's. I wound up making a casserole out of a bunch of the topics I was going to hit. We got derailed pretty early on in November, and not derailed. It was derailed in a very edifying direction. But Karen Swallow Pryor tweeted something about empathy, and Joe Rigney responded, and it looked promising, like promising agreement there for a minute. But then Joe asked her a question, and then she responded, and the whole thing went off the empathy track, the sympathy empathy track. And so I did at least a couple of posts on that because there was a huge uproar about it. And Joe made waves years ago with a Man Rampant interview on empathy, and that sort of revealed that we inadvertently touched the eyeball of a lot of what's going on here.
What is that?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Let's touch the eyeball.
The eyeball is radical subjectivism. So we live in an era where everything and everyone is governed by the feels. Okay,
Disney.
How do you feel? It goes back to Disney.
Right.
How do you feel? And the idea of controlling your emotions is thought to be inherently abusive. Okay, so if you discipline your emotions, if you learn the stiff upper lip, if you learn to suck it up, that's you're
unnatural.
You're turning yourself into a neurotic, according to the zeitgeist, and that's why. And then shortly after that, Nancy walked into it.
Spanking.
Okay.
Spanking gate.
With Spanking Gate. And she walked into it like 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
right?
Because some of her enemies have been rummaging through old conferences, and
pulling out gold.
And the one thing I feel good about is our adversaries here are getting a lot of good teaching.
How do you guys
digging deep?
Okay, I'm gonna let you finish, but I just had to pull my Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish, but it seems to me like people don't understand how even the whole social media structure thing works. They don't know that they are working for free, getting content out to promote you guys are doing. And you don't have to pay for editors. They're just going through it and chopping up clips and posting it and making and promoting it and paying for it. Like, you got a whole free marketing campaign for you.
I couldn't believe it. So the last time I looked at that clip of Nancy, it was just shy of 3 million views.
Right.
And the rest of the family was quite jealous.
I don't know if it was Canon or somebody, but they clipped the middle of your video where you say, "Thank you, honey," and she hands you the turkey. And they said, this is no quarter November 20, thank you, honey.
That's funny. That's it. So that blew up, and they dig up this clip and act as though we are going to apologize for it or feel ashamed about it.
Right.
No, that's what we said. This is what we teach.
Yeah.
So your children need to be taught to control their emotions.
Right.
And the reason why is you don't want them to go to the penitentiary.
Right.
And then the reaction in all the comments the comments to the video was evidence that a bunch of the parents of these kids, commenters, had not followed the advice in the video.
Right.
It was just
they
like
emotionally barfed all over.
Yeah, it was just blarg.
response.
It's just blarg.
Yeah.
Millions of people doing this.
Yep.
And you say, okay, this is the problem. Radical subjectivism is the problem. And that subjectivity, and this ties in with Lewis in The Abolition of Man, where he argues that our passions have to be governed by not by our reason, because if you just have reason and the passions, then reason is going to simply be a clever mechanism for getting what your passions want.
Or justifying.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lewis argues for the inculcation of what he calls the chest, the sentiments. He quotes Confucius. It's upon the trunk that a gentleman works. So the sentiment, the chest, is what enables us, equips us to subdue our passions, right? But that can't happen without nurture and instruction and God's grace and a Christian upbringing.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we get such a radical subjectivism?
Well, Lewis pinpoints it back in the 1940s in The Abolition of Man, where it begins with a relativism. I would say the whole postmodern thing is basically warmed over existentialism.
Okay.
And existentialism is that existence precedes essence. Essence is something that we bring to the table later. Existence is this raw, chaotic mess.
Okay.
Existence is unshaped, formless, and void. And then God doesn't give shape to the formlessness and void.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
And
We're
so
God, huh?
we are the God who hovers over the face of the deep. And so then we come and we give shape to our essence, which is why people think they can invent themselves or reinvent themselves.
It's also then why it's so scandalous for parents to try to impress upon children to be a certain way.
Right.
You're violating the God of the the system.
Correct. That's exactly right.
This is a holy, sacred thing, and you're enforcing that. You're telling them you need to be cheerful.
Right. And this is something that we are operating in the classic Christian tradition. This is just mainstream Christianity 101 stuff. And then we found that it collides, head-on collision, with the spirit of the age.
Right.
And a bunch of the Christian world, even the evangelical world, has got the evangelical buzzwords, but it's imbibed the spirit of the age. And so we collide with them too.
That was the surprising thing. We touched on this earlier this week in the previous show, but as we were talking a little bit about the spanking cake stuff,
wasn't ready.
I was totally prepared for the worldly folks, the blue-haired, lesbian psychologists, whatever, saying that's child abuse, call CPS. The surprising thing was how many Christians, or at least in their bios, are saying, Christian, Bible-believing Christian, conservative even, who said, this is abuse.
Right.
This is wicked. Right. This is awful. Or at least we're like, yeah, I believe in spanking, but not like that. Yeah. That's awful.
For big sins, not for small emotional.
For open defiance, maybe, but not for a bad attitude. Never. That would be horrible.
Right.
Sorry. I don't know these people. I mean, go ahead. I'm gonna lose it.
I mean, but that indicates to me that it's worse than it's worse than we think.
Things are pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, these churches that I mean, I had like PCA elders come, in my feed.
Shame on you.
Talking about how awful this was.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like, oh my goodness.
And part of it for me, part of the thing that's like, okay, it's worse than what it was. It's showing me that the bottom of what kind of just holds the culture together, the residue of evangelicalism is almost completely gone. The veneer is almost completely gone off of this thing.
Well, it disappeared from the culture generally.
That's right.
And now it's disappearing from the evangelical church itself.
Right.
Right. So how can the church have influence in the world when the church has lost its saltiness out there?
Right. Yeah.
Well, now there's getting to the point where there's hardly any salt in the church.
Right.
There's hardly any salt in the salt shaker.
So how do you look at these next 40 years? Not even just like this next administration.
The last 20 of the 40 years, I'll be in heaven and not worried about it.
You'll be partying.
Hey, I did my job, y'all. Y'all figure it out.
Over to window. See you later.
That brings me to another question. Go ahead, Pastor. I'll let you answer the.
I believe that we are either headed for a great Reformation that will put the 16th century Reformation into the shade, or we're in for a period of major chaos.
So either or. It's going to go either way.
It's Reformation and the chaos that attends Reformation.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The Protestant Reformation was chaotic.
Right.
So it's not like it's going to be serene and placid, but it'll be glorious and good, as opposed to the chaos of anarchy, breakdown, that sort of thing. I believe that unless there is a major blessing outpouring from God on our culture, on Western culture, we are in for a rodeo.
Pastor, Gabe brought up, what's the next 40 years look like? That's part of it. I want to ask the question of the time that you're here. What does it look like for you? How do you finish well? But I really want to talk about, so many people talk about the impact Moscow is having socially, and I've watched it since I've been here for 9 years. Whatever's happening in people's churches is bubbling up to the point that their pastors have to start doing Bible studies on it on Sunday morning, which is really interesting. Like I don't know if people doing that anywhere else for anybody else. Let me tell you about what Kevin DeYoung said. It's really bad. I'm gonna do a whole
3-week
Bible
series on that.
6-week series. Nobody's doing that, and so it's really unique to me. But what are you trying to do here in Moscow? I want to what is your goal here as a pastor to your people? What are you building?
One of the points that Kevin DeYoung made that I agreed with half of. He made a good point. The part I disagreed with is that he was assuming it's not going on here. But Chesterton once says that you should fight wolves. You should fight not because you hate what's in front of you, but because you love what's behind you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now, Kevin DeYoung made that point. We should be preaching Christ, exalting Christ, building community,
spending our time in prayer, worship,
all of that. And so that was one of his weighty criticisms, which, if it was true, I would agree with. Right. But one of the things we've been doing for decades is building community, worship, week in, week out, family, teaching on family, building the school, conducting weddings.
Yeah.
So
encouraging personal Bible reading and personal holiness and confession.
Yeah. So all of that, he says, I wish Wilson would do more of that. And I say, well, I'd be happy to. It's an hours in the day problem, but I'm happy to redouble my efforts to do that. Yeah. This is I'm reminded, they just wanted us to remember the poor, the very thing we were eager to do.
Yeah, Galatians, and Paul says that.
So you're right. That's what we should be doing. But I've written numerous books. I've written satirical books.
Yeah.
But I've also written numerous books, wedding exhortations, and
family, raising kids,
Future Man, reforming marriage,
Mother Kirk,
Father
church.
Hunger, all those. There's so many materials out there. It was hard for me to say, okay, even if you don't know what's happening internally, it's not hard to look at the book list and say, oh, well, let me take that out of my article. Let me take this out of my article. It's not that hard to look at that. So another question I have is, what does the next 20 years of cultural building look like if we're going to have revival just in our little circle in Moscow itself? What does that look like?
So basically, I think it has to look like replication. So it's not really going to be a living reality unless people get enough of it to be able to transplant it elsewhere. There's nothing magical in the water here in Moscow.
Right.
There's some things we do that you wouldn't have to replicate everywhere else, but there's some things that Christian education for our kids, regular worship that's not like a junior high pep rally, that's dignified and joyful and sober. So worship and Christian education and all those things have to transfer. Those things have to be planted elsewhere and take root and start flourishing elsewhere.
I got to read this, and then I don't know if there's a final question. You have a final question?
A lot more.
The Tactics Conference is coming up. Learn how to build Christ's kingdom from those that are doing it. Join C.R. Wiley, the campus preacher Keith Darrell, Gabe Branch. You're going to be there?
Yeah.
Chocolate Knox. I'm going to be there, it says, for 2 days of boots on the ground training on how to take your community for Christ. Great talks, great food, and great people. Come see us in Lafayette, Louisiana. Oh, it's in Louisiana. You think there's great people down
Raging
there?
Cajun.
Yeah. That's only about 2.5 hours east of Houston, Texas on January 19th through the 20th. And take note, seating is limited. Families are welcome. Come experience some Cajun hospitality while we labor together to build a new Christendom. Beer and psalms, panel discussions, Cajun dancing. Man, I got to see
What
that.
is that?
Whoa.
I believe when I see it.
That's one of those things that doesn't transfer,
Yeah, we don't understand.
Go to tacticscon.com, tacticscon.com to buy your tickets today and use the coupon code FLF Pub to get $20 off your ticket price. That's tacticscon.com. We'll see you in South Louisiana this January.
Can't wait for some Cajun.
Cajun.
It's been a long
Do you
time.
have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, because I want to.
Can I make a comment about Cajun food?
Sure.
Hurry.
Because I'm going to hog our pastor real quick.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much of Moscow is. It's all been God's kindness holding everything together, but it also feels very duct taped together. Like our studio. And so of course, when you put a video on the internet, everything looks more polished than it really is. You got the whole Twitter social media thing, but I don't think people really understand and this is kind of connected to what you were just talking about, all the labor of love that has gone on since, you started Logos in 1981. Was that correct? I'd say my big concern over the next 40 years with what's going on here in Moscow is that our kids are growing up into an inheritance of a school they didn't build, a church they didn't start, a battle they didn't fight, a college they didn't start, all these good gifts around us. And they're walking into this, $20 million mansion home. And how do we communicate to our kids? This is a local question.
With all this privilege, right?
With all this,
a lot of good godly privilege.
Black, Protestant Reformed privilege, or whatever.
I'll take it.
how do we as parents like inculcate, like get them excited about things they didn't build and get them excited about the fights ahead of them that they need to fight on top of our shoulders? It's kind of a big question, but
that's the question that you see in the Old Testament.
That's right.
Is generational succession.
Yep.
So when the Lord delivered one generation, and then the next generation forgets.
That's right.
So it's good to have that in the forefront of our minds. Mm-hmm. But this is the thing. I think that we have a half a step on it already, okay. And the reason is I believe that what's happening in Moscow is. We got to jump on the institution building. So
right.
Our in the K through 12 and New St. Andrews and Canon Press and all these institutions
and the church plants,
are well down the road. They're established, which creates the problem that you're talking about. But is also the case that the opposition to such things is also well established. So so we are. In a certain sense, Moscow, Idaho is 20 years, 30 years in the future.
Okay.
Right? Both in terms of the institutionalization and the opposition to it. Yeah. So my grandkids have been cussed out on the street.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's not just
they've experienced some of the opposition.
I think it's going to be more likely the problem that you're talking about is more likely going to be with their children,
grandkids,
with my great grandkids, with their children, because there's going to come a time when we win, when what we're doing becomes
a little more
peaceful and respectable,
right?
Where the people start coming to your church because it's the good place to sell insurance, because it's the place where everybody who's anybody in town goes. Yeah. That's not the case right now. If you want to come to Christ Church or King's Cross,
there's a cost for your business.
You've got to walk uphill to do it.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a time when we prevail in the time of my great grandkids, where it's going to be respectable and placid and non-controversial to be associated with us. Yeah. Right. And that's going to be the time when you want the Chestertonian exuberance to be communicated to them. I'm not worried about my kids or grandkids because they're still in the thick of it, and they're dealing with the opposition every bit as much as we are.
That's right. Yeah.
I just even think, Gabe, like your kids watched you get arrested.
I was going to say that. I was going to bring the exact thing.
I can't imagine them ever forgetting that for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it's pretty etched in their mind.
And I know my kids remember you getting arrested, and that kind of thing. And they're going to remember COVID, and they're going to remember, they right there with us when I read off to them some of the crazy things that people say on the internet
Twitter
about our churches and about our family and that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that's not a reason to
relax,
but I do think that is part of the gift. I mean, it's in Deuteronomy that God says that he wasn't going to drive out all of the enemies, so that the people would still know how to fight wars.
That's right.
So I think there's a gift in knowing who the enemies are still and who we're still up against.
Amen.
And that's what we need to be preparing the next generation for.
Okay, last thing.
America, what's wrong with you?
Who are you voting for? I want to. That's the last question. Okay, and then he can leave.
How about we tie these two together? I was going to ask you. So has Gabe talked to you yet about coming to our conference next year? Prodigal America.
Talked to Chris.
Okay.
We don't
she said it's like penciled in your calendar, and I'm like, no, I want it inked in.
Yeah,
I go where I'm pointed.
Tattoo that joker. Tattoo it in the calendar. Prodigal America, where America needs to repent at. I would love for you to talk about. We had Dr. White on talking about where he thinks America needs to repent at. And I know it's early. The conference next year is Reformation Day, October 31st and November 2nd.
Yeah.
So, but I would love for you to talk about that along with the presidential standing right now.
Right.
And where you would throw your hat in at.
I do, because of the primary system, I don't know who's going to still be standing.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to Idaho, but the way it's looking,
we're the third state this year. It got
really?
moved. We're in March. We're like the third or fourth state in all of it because we're caucusing this year.
Okay, so that means what that means is that it is almost certain, even if we were last, it's almost certain that Trump is going to take the nomination walking away.
His polls just went up again this week.
Right.
It's incredible.
So the only thing that could make it better for Trump is if he was convicted and jailed.
Oh my goodness.
and the Supreme Court, and then wins the election,
Right.
And then the Supreme Court Chief Justice goes down to the prison to swear him in.
Oh my
And then
goodness!
he pardons himself.
And he pardons himself and walks out on the courthouse steps with a little victory sign. And
Still in his orange suit.
Which you would love.
That'd be the perfect ending to this story, to be honest with you.
Oh, that would be the beginning of the story. So basically, I believe that the shenanigans that have attended the establishment's opposition to Trump, just aside from his faults and failings, this is not a personal allegiance to everything that Trump said or did, because he was bad on the vaccine, he was bad on the lockdown, he was bad. You know, he's not a principled conservative.
Right.
However, he has been ganged up on by the
Establishment Republicans,
by the establishment,
the bureaucrats,
such that I believe that he is owed the presidency. Right. So consequently, I would have no trouble in my conscience voting for him at all, enthusiastically, knowing that it's going to be a big mess. Right? It's going to be a big mess. But that's the mess. I prefer that mess to the one we're in now.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second part of his question was, so it's a year out, but if you think about a message on America needs to repent,
Prodigal
America, what comes to your mind?
Am I speaking right after James White?
We can arrange that.
we can make that happen.
Baptize your babies. Get Hebrews 8. Get Hebrews 8 straight in your mind.
I'll take that. Say less. That's really good, Pastor. Thank you very much. Oh, look at that. The whole thing just decided to trip out on me. Look at that. That ain't nothing.
That's it.
Dr. James White did not like that joke. I think he tricked the board. So, Pastor, thank you very much for everything you're doing. Very grateful for you. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next time, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
Hi, I'm Luke Ritchie. Wrong timeline. Okay, that's better. Time travel mechanics can get a little bit tricky. I'm Luke Ritchie, Chief Visionary Officer of Gravity Jack. In 2009, we founded Gravity Jack and essentially patented AR. What I'm about to tell you about is a vision that was 14 years in the making. War Tribe of Benjamin. This is a game that feels so real, it might be. It's a genre-defining game for AR and mobile and the Apple Vision Pro. We've integrated artificial intelligence not just into the characters in the game, but actually in the business model of War Tribe. So I love augmented reality games. They're one of my favorites. But the problem is it seems like they've added AR as an afterthought into the game. What if you sat down for 14 years and planned the entire thing around augmented reality? Games make a ton of money, and typically that money doesn't end up in the pocket of the players. We intend to change that. Lastly, and this is important, half the world has never and never will be targeted by big tech for an AI, natural language processing engine. We're definitely going to change that. War Tribe of Benjamin has gameplay like you've never seen before. We have portals opening everywhere, we have holographic communication, but what's really cool too is the world of 2133 is accurately geo-overlaid on the world of today. We're laser focused on ROI for our shareholders, which is you. One of the things we're doing that's super unique that's never been done before is taking 10% of in-game revenue monthly and giving it off as a dividend. The other co-founders and myself started Gravity Jack in 2009, but in 2007 we'd actually sold our company to a gaming company. We've hired the best of the best in terms of game development. Our director of development, product designer are all veterans in the gaming space. And not only that, we're going after a market that's gigantic. We're combining 4 huge major markets: artificial intelligence, augmented reality, translation, and gaming, all for a combined market value of $1.85 trillion.
Our incredible history has led us to be experts in mobile development, augmented reality, AI, gaming, and computer vision. It's been a wild ride here at Gravity Jack. A benefit to being so early on in augmented reality has led to a robust patent portfolio with active revenue and more to come. We've had the privilege of working with clients such as Oscar Mayer, Kraft, Lincoln, Samsung, T-Mobile. We've also worked on non-lethal Department of Defense contracts as well. we were a reference developer for Meta on the Oculus 2 directly, creating a game where other developers look to our source code for best practices. Early on in Gravity Jack's history, we did a game for Double Down Casino, and at the end of that contract, it was grossing $35 million a month. Our robust history has led us to be experts in augmented reality, AI, gaming, computer vision, and mobile development. Play to earn opportunities for the impoverished create an AI language model for unreached people groups, allowing us to have an eventual monopoly on speaking to half the planet. Our focus is shareholder dividends immediately after the game and into the future to create a game that's going to blow the world's minds. And we're pulling people out of poverty and into productivity. So what's the ask? Join the Binyamin.